What's going on, guys? Evan the Dark Souls 2 enthusiast here, bringing another Dark Souls 2 gameplay commentary on my ongoing pseudo Let's Play of the Dark Souls 2 storyline here. Today we're going to be doing the Doors of Pharros, and this is a pretty short and simple area. In fact, a lot of the time will be spent with me randomly AFKing as I try to remember which... not really AFKing, but as I try to remember which doors you can actually open to get valuable stuff with your lockstones. This character didn't join the Rat Brothers Covenant, so I didn't have like a lot of lockstones laying around. However, I do down the Royal Rat Authority, who is the boss of this area, on my first go, which is pretty impressive because I tend to wipe him a lot. I, for some reason, struggle with the whole instant charge. Well, you'll see that a little bit later. But not a whole lot of channel updates, haven't uploaded that much. I've been busy packing for my journey out west across this state. Hopefully, I'm planning to upload some things from there, and I have plenty of Dark Souls footage in archive, which is one of the reasons I've sort of slowed down the uploads, is I need to maintain some archival footage for this summer when I'm not going to have a lot of time to make content for 2 months, so I need to have a backlog of content. That content includes some Dark Souls 2 stuff, some Dota 2 stuff, and... probably do some FTL stuff. I can do FTL over the summer, and I'm going to try to get back on that FF8 playthrough, because I know a lot of people started following it, then I just kind of dropped it, but definitely going to be going back to the Final Fantasy 8 playthrough, and if I get through that and plat it, we're probably going to do, or get all the Steam achievements, probably going to do a Final Fantasy 3 playthrough, which just released on Steam. But sort of a short upload. The Doors of Pharros is a short and sweet area, mostly a Rat Brothers Covenant area. But this area does contain the coveted Santier Spear, which is going to be so coveted very soon, which is partly what this upload is about. I want to talk about patch 1.06, and at the time of this video, the exact patch details are not available. We only have the premise of what's going on. This is the 30th of May. Of course, the patch is going to drop on the 2nd, so I'm going to talk about what we do know, while there are some things we don't know. But, alright, let me go ahead and jump right into it. So... some of the stats have already, some of the patch notes that I want to go over right away. The Bat Staff has been nerfed. It no longer has an interaction with Dark Fog. So for those of you that haven't watched my PvP video or don't know exactly what that is, the Bat Staff plus the Hex Dark Fog, if you use Dark Fog cast from a Bat Staff, it would almost instantly poison anybody in the cloud. That includes NPC and PvP. It's really, really strong, definitely overpowered. You'd have people try to mash roll and get away, but you could just sit there and spam the Dark Fog, and they were pretty much guaranteed to poison. Once they were poisoned, you could go in and fight, and, you know, unless your opponent was way better than you or you were just brain dead, you're almost guaranteed to win, because it's really hard for a player to beat out poison while you're sort of slamming their face in with whatever weapon you've chosen. And, you know, if you've got, you know, Dark Fog, you presumably have hexes, so you'll probably be spamming Great Resonance Souls. They won't get a chance to flask, so... It was definitely an overpowered and definitely an unfun strategy. You know, there's a lot of ways to poison your opponent in Dark Souls 2, and mossing it away is always an option. The thing about Dark Fog was you couldn't just moss right away because you'd be standing in the fog still, and they could just reapply the poison whenever you tried to do basically anything. Anytime you weren't in constant motion, it was an instant poison. So it was completely overpowered. It was a glitch. It was not intended. I think the patch notes even refer to it as a glitch, so it's a good thing they realized that. What was supposed to happen was the Bat Staff was supposed to have a modifier where the physical attack would build up poison, which is essentially useless, but it was a little hidden effect on the item that I think accidentally got transferred over to the Dark Fog. But anyway, next up, Gavlan has been nerfed. Gavlan, of course, the quote-unquote secondary crossbow that's essentially a primary for mundane builds, and its damage has been reduced, its reloads have been increased, and the tracking has been reduced as well. So Gavlan, we don't know how badly these nerfs are going to affect it, but I think between the three, I think it'll still be useful. I think it just won't be the end-all be-all of everything. I mean, double mundane Gavlan, you know, if you had lightning arrows in that thing, you could pretty much instant blast people in PvP. You could instant kill bosses with like 3 or 4 volleys. It was really unfun, particularly with a Ring of Blades +2 to up that damage. Absolutely disgusting build, and the way people use this in PvP was, because I know a lot of people post about, oh, you can counter Gavlan, just hold up his shield or strafe back or forth. You don't really understand how it works. Most players who knew how to use the Gavlans properly in PvP and didn't just suck, they would equip Glower's Ring of Protection, which makes you immune to damage from the back. They would then proceed to turn their back to you. You know, if you try to advance them, they turn their back to you, and they would ultimately wind up, you know, almost point blank blasting you with the Avelins. And it was a bigger problem than people give it credit for. I mean, not unbeatable, but very hard to deal with. They were in full Havel's armor, so they could take a lot of abuse. They had a lot of HP typically, and they had, you know, double Avelins. And if, you know, you were trying to play really cautiously to go around the Avelins, they could always swap into alternate gear. It was pretty cheap, not unbeatable, but skill-less and absolutely meta-defining, into turning the meta into a really poor excuse for a PvP quote-unquote meta. So really glad to see those nerfs coming in. Plus they were way too strong in the PvE environment, mainly because all the other crossbows were absolute garbage, and the bows as well. I mean, none of the ranged non-magic did nearly as much damage as double Avelins just spamming at full fire, so definitely a welcome change. Santier Spear has been nerfed. I don't really agree with this. I built a Santier Spear character just to try it, and I basically actually soul vesseled it. I didn't really build it, but whatever. I wasn't really that impressed with it. I think FromSoft is doing their best to sort of hotfix. This is a hotfix, not a full patch. They're trying to hotfix community concerns, but honestly, I think that Santier Spear is more of a weapon to beat up on bads. I mean, it is a good weapon. I mean, the diverse moveset. For those of you not familiar with Santier Spear, it has the moveset of a twin blade, a halberd, and a spear all in one. So it's a pretty fascinating weapon, and the huge range of attacks you get actually makes it pretty useful. But it was in no means overpowered. I mean, the only thing that really did a lot of damage in the PvP was the quote-unquote spin to win from the halberd moveset, which is the running two-handed, and the two-handed R1, which was, you know, the twin blades spin the blade all around you and do all the attacks. It was fascinating. It was a cool weapon. Overpowered? No, I don't think so. Very good. A high-tier weapon? Absolutely, but I think nerfing it's maybe a snap judgment on the part of FromSoft. I don't think it needed. Apparently its damage is being lowered and its stamina use is being modified. Can't say I really agree with that, only because, you know, I don't think the weapon is that great. I think it's useful and powerful, and I think after this nerf it's not going to be worth using, frankly, unless the damage nerf is very minor. But even then, its damage is already pretty low in a lot of instances. Next up, the Abyss Ring. Its multiplayer is being changed. So who knows how it's being changed? It's either going to be weakened or strengthened, but presumably this will make dark spells dark spells stronger, which might be needed with some of these other patch notes on here, where there's some other nerfs coming to hexes, you know. So maybe this, maybe the Abyss Ring, the hex change will be good. Maybe it'll increase the multiplayer so it's more useful. Maybe it'll actually decrease it so it's less useful. I'm not sure. I do think hexes are probably a little too strong. I think that hexing, I did a hexer earlier in my Dark Souls 2 career, and it was probably one of the easiest characters I ever played, so we'll see what happens there. I'm not too worried about that either way. Next up is Great Resonant Soul is having its damage nerfed. This is needed. Now, Great Resonant Soul scales off really bad by like new game +2, +3. It doesn't one-shot standard enemies, and it, you know, takes 3 or 4 to kill most enemies, which is a big soul drain. You know, sure, late game it sort of scaled off in usefulness, but most players aren't going to go that far into New Game Plus, and by that far into New Game Plus, you know, you're basically going to be spamming the high-end sorceries and the high-end everything. So I agree with it being nerfed. I see grounds for it, quote-unquote, being balanced at like the very in-game stages, but Great Resonant Soul became the defining spell for PvE through most of the game, and while people will cry and complain that it was easy to dodge in PvP and quote-unquote, you know, the get good mentality once again, I still think it was too strong in PvP. Overpowered, no, but I mean, it was really the only hex anybody used, unless they're Bat Fog glitching you with the Bat Staff and Dark Fog. Resonant Weapon has been nerfed, the damage has been lowered. I don't agree with this. I think there's grounds for it. I don't necessarily think it's a poor design choice, but you know, Great Resonant Weapon does not last very long. on the weapon. It was pretty sick in PvP, but most people could pretty much run away from you to counter it, so I don't know. Is it a fair nerf? I don't know, maybe. It just seems like there isn't a lot of reason to hex anymore, depending on how great these buffs and nerfs are, so we'll see what happens. Flame weapon's been nerfed, presumably the damage. I guess that's fine, considering the pyromancy required no investment on the part of your character other than some fire seeds. It being on par with the other buffs is probably unfair. It should probably be weaker than all the other buffs just by virtue of requiring no stat investment. So, you know, I agree with that. But we're almost at the end of the patch notes. I'll pick this up after the Royal Rat Authority, which is up ahead. So I'll see you guys in a minute. Alright guys, and that's the Royal Rat Vanguard. I'm sorry, that's not the Royal Rat Vanguard, that is the Royal Rat Authority. I think he is the poorest designed boss in Dark Souls 2, mainly because his attacks consist of charging directly at you in 3 different variants and having a bunch of adds. Once you kill all those little rat dudes, it's not really even a fight. And I don't like bosses like that. I'm one of those people that argues that the Dark Souls 2 combat system is best suited for difficult one-on-one engagements where, you know, there's tough enemies requiring a lot of rolling, blocking, and, you know, the use of, you know, your controls to their fullest, not putting a bunch of enemies on screen and just having them all rush you down. I understand that having a little bit of that in the game is probably a good thing, but I don't know, I think too much of that is game ruining. I'm not saying that it did ruin the game. I think that Dark Souls 2 as a design philosophy banked too hard on having lots of enemies on screen to contribute to the difficulty. But that is another conversation for another time. So a couple more things to cover. The power stance glitch with, great swords and great axes has been nerfed, and I assume that includes the other weapons. I'm not positive as to what this means. I've been asking on some forums. My initial thought would be that it means that they are going to nerf the infinite stunlock glitch, which eventually basically involved either, power stancing some ultra great weapons, or, having two, the right combination of a big weapon and a small weapon, which will let you infinite stunlock players. I don't know if this is addressing that. I assume that's addressing that. A lot of people in the forum seem to think this will address that, but once again, I don't know. So if anyone wants to include in the comments what that means to them, let me know. Maybe I'm not as informed on that topic as I'd like to be. So next up would be the enchanted path has been modified. I have never made an enchanted weapon on Dark Souls 2. I've never really had the need. There's never been a weapon I wanted to relate to magic, so I'm not exactly sure how that will affect it. I hope it makes it better, because I haven't heard of anybody even using the enchant path, so I hope that it improves it, but we'll see. With any luck, it will actually buff it a little bit. I'd like to see some more variety in what people wind up putting on their stuff. All I really ever see is, mundane for the Avalons, lightning for everything else, and fire for dark, and all I ever see the mages use is Moonlight Greatsword. No one seems to understand that Blue Flame's actually pretty cool if you know what you're doing, but Moonlight Greatsword's probably still a little better, or Ruler Sword, so things like that. Spell duration has been modified. I don't know specifically what spells. Mind you, I don't read Japanese. This is all loose translations, so can't really comment on that. I'm not even sure what it means. And apparently they're nerfing the parrying for the curved swords, specifically the monetary scimitar, and that is music to my ears. Of all the things that are wrong with PvP in this game, and wrong with this game in general, I think for the PvP crowd, the monetary scimitar might be the biggest offender. Of course that's a matter of opinion, but we're talking about something that completely invalidated a lot of melee weapons for most fights. There'll still be easy parries through other methods, but nerfing the parry window on the scimitar will make a big difference on cutting down the parry abuse, in my opinion. Maybe we'll go back to parrying actually requiring practice and skill instead of basically any fool being able to pick it up after 2 or 3 matches with a monastery scimitar. So all in all, kind of a mixed bag of a patch. It's a hot fix, so I'm sure a larger, more defined patch will be coming in the near future, hopefully, and I think that patch will be the true test. This is just definitely a step in the right direction, but that's the end. Quick upload, guys. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Next time we'll do some Brightstone Cove, Testora, and once again, thank you for your time, and I'll see everyone around next time.